Hi everyone, I'm Rai Sanglang, and I'm here with fine art conceptual photographer Crystal Dickerson Hancock. Welcome, Crystal, to the Hangout.
Oh, well, thank you.
So, Crystal, how would you characterize the art and work that you do?
I would characterize my work as conceptual fine art. Um, I create montages that take a look at like women as an archetypal figure. I explore like folklore and mysticism and things like that. So I take all those elements, I kind of bring them into my concepts. So.
How did you originally get into your art? Could you walk us through the story of how, from when you first started up until this point?
Okay, so I actually just picked up my camera back in 2012. I'm a mom of four, and my youngest daughter, well, I have four kids, so my daughter, who is number three in line, was a senior in high school. I decided to go back to school. I wanted to go back to get my BS, and so I thought, oh, you know what? I've always loved photography, so I'm just going to look at that because I didn't need to go back to work to bring in like a second career. So I started really from ground zero in 2012, and then I just started learning the new digital systems because I had used film prior to that. And but I always saw these images in my mind that were like what I'm producing now. And so I started looking at other artists and delving into how to create that kind of image. And so then I took a visualization class at the Academy of Art University, which really propelled me forward as far as making the turn as into developing the type of artwork that I'm doing now.
Did you always know that this is what you wanted to do?
Well, I've always loved photography since I was a child. I can remember my grandma giving me a camera when I was just a little girl, and I was just fascinated with the whole process. And the funny thing it was, even when I was not creating images, I would see images in my mind. Like I would see things and I would think, oh, that would make an incredible picture. Or if I did this, that would make an incredible picture. And so while I wasn't always working in the medium because I was a busy mom and we own a business, and I actually homeschooled my kids all the way up till like the 9th grade. So I was really consumed with just being the family organizer, you know, taking on that mom role. So it wasn't until my kids grew up and started moving out of the house that I had the time to start exploring that.
So, what are some challenges that you've had to get to where you are?
Well, I think that a lot of people at this stage of life are looking, I'm really basically, I look at myself and I think that this is where I should have been when I came right out of college as a young person. So I'm kind of, I feel like I'm competing a lot of times, or with kids that are like just finishing school or just, you know, graduating from high school. And so I feel like a baby, I guess, in that respect, yet I bring in this kind of, I think, worldly view because I've been around for a number of years. And then, so that kind of gives me a different perspective maybe than, say, a young person who's at the same stage of development, I guess, as far as an artist goes.
So, how are you dealing with that situation and that challenge?
I just, fortunately, I'm able to focus on my work a lot. I only have one child still at home, so I get to spend a lot of time when I have a lot of quiet time where I can sit and contemplate and develop my ideas. And then I don't have as many distractions as I probably did a few years ago because just because of where life is at. So I'm able to focus and make a plan and then follow through without, say, having life get in the way.
What are some of the major successes that you've had?
Well, I would say that I've had a number of images that I was lucky enough to have in galleries, so I was really thrilled with that. But the one that I was really excited about was an image of mine was selected for Who is Magdalena, which is put on through Photonola, and it explores women and who they are and who exactly was Mary Magdalena and all the roles that she played. So that, and also that particular venue, it supported women and women's rights in like in third world countries, and just helping to prepare them, and financially it benefited them. So that was very near and dear to my heart. So I was super excited about that.
So Crystal, what are you currently working on?
Well, I just finished an image last night that I've been I took it a little while ago, and I've just had it. I've been so busy that with current work, that I kept pushing it back in the back. And so I just actually finished it last night. And so I was really excited because it's an image of two young gals, and they are, I think the reason I love the image so much is that it kind of has this Jessica Lange kind of quality to it. And
Could you bring up some of the work that you've been working on your screen?
Okay.
Please? Great.
And pretty much I always work with like women archetypes. So I explore like the nature and the character of women and the roles that they play in life. So this particular one is that they're in this chimney where that's completely burnt out and the house is completely gone, yet they're seeking refuge in what's left of their crumbling home.
How did you come up with a story behind this picture?
Behind this picture? Well, I did a whole shoot up in by Mount Baldy, and just that whole landscape kind of lends to this. It was it actually used to be a lodge that was there, and the whole thing burnt down. It's burnt to the ground, and so this really is all that's left standing there. But I did a couple other images with the girls, and they're kind of like, the whole thing is about seeking refuge, like finding shelter in the wilderness, kind of. I have another image where that actually was selected for it's a contest that was like the college. It's a college artist of the year or whatever. Anyways, so it was selected for that, but it was from that same shoot.
Where'd you find these models?
Okay, so they actually are, Lola is, I met her at a workshop some time back, and I've just worked with her off and on, and she's the little gal, the young one. She's super talented, and she just is very professional for her age. She can outdo some of the gals that are much older. She takes directive really well, and she's just an acquaintance that I met at a workshop. And Brooke Moore is a fellow photographer's daughter who also does acting and modeling and is just graduating from high school. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So would you like to bring up your website for us?
Okay, so the one that I was telling you about is, I'll show you. Is this one.
Okay. Is this part of that same series?
It is.
You showed me? Okay.
And they're like, see how they're like, these kids that are like, their home is destroyed, and they're just in the wilderness, and they're kind of just clinging to each other. Okay. So, that little guy in the background, that is Logan, my 12-year-old.
Crystal, so how do you develop the storytelling elements behind your art?
Well, so I had this idea. I had seen the landscape up there, and so then just when in the morning, I typically will have like tea or something like that, a hot drink, and then I like to sit down and and just like let my mind wander. And I just, so usually during that quiet time is when I'll start thinking of visualizing stories. And so we had pulled together these dresses, which are like Jessica McClintock dresses that my friend had. And so we pulled those together, and then Logan was just in, cut off jeans, cut off shorts. So it's kind of just kind of rugged, kind of Mowgli, kind of, little kids out in the wilderness, kind of that aesthetic with just the kids in the elements or whatever. So that was our intent when we went up there. And then we kind of just developed the story as we were there. And we had preconceived like the idea of the chimney and taking the pictures of the kids in the chimney. And so we had gone up there with that intent, thinking that we could develop this story with of these kids that are survivors, that are, clinging to what they have left of their home. And then that home bonds them together, even though everything has crumbled around them. So.
Can you please talk about the process you used to shoot this particular picture? Any technical aspects that you want to cover?
Okay, so I love to use a prime lens, and pretty much all of my images, actually all of my images are shot with a prime lens, and I use a 50 millimeter 1.4. And so this particular image is several images shot. The kids were like one shot, and then I completely will use like a grid kind of format to take pictures of all of the different segments so that I can put it together. I love the old Hasselblad square film images, how in the old days they were square back then. So that's kind of the aesthetic that I go for, but I build it out so that the actual file is like huge. It's probably 24 by 24. So yeah, so all these parts, like I kind of like, if you were to set it up kind of like a grid, you know what I mean? Like it's way more than 9, but if you were to break it into pieces, it kind of would be like putting a puzzle together with yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it. Just like I shoot the center focal subject, and then I will shoot like all the surrounding elements, and then I go home and in Photoshop I piece all the pieces together and like a puzzle.
And how do you do that? Is there a special tool you use that does it automatically, or is it all done manually?
No, it's all done manually. I just cut and paste. No, I will bring up all the files that I want. I select, and then I will drag it to where I want it, because I've shot it all. This particular one was handheld, but only because of the landscape, and I often will use a tripod. So this particular one was handheld, but because I know how, you know what I mean? I hold it like I'm very rigid with the way that I hold it, so that I know when I get home if I've made any movements or, change my perspective at all, that it's not going to fit together perfectly. So I am very careful about the way that I shoot it. And then so I shoot it basically hand holding it as if it were on a tripod. And then that way when I go home and go into Photoshop, I can pretty much select without having to, do too much transforming to get it to fit together.
Do you think you could please bring up the Photoshop file for this picture so we can take a look at how you stitched it all together?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so where did it go? Is it up?
Yeah, it's up. So if you could just walk us through what we're seeing.
Okay. Let's just do this. Oh, there. Okay, so that was the foundation image right there. And then I just started building out from there. So here, I just changed that little bit right there. The look of the girl and Logan. And then I start adding in.
And how exactly do you add those other landscape pieces to that?
So I would, I cut and paste. So if you like look at this, this is this particular piece. I just let's see. Okay, so let's see. So this is the piece, and then I would create a layer mask, and then I just kind of brush it in where I want it.
And you match the features manually?
I line it up. Yeah, I will just like, so the other two pieces would have been there already. Then I would have brought that in, and then so then yeah, then I would have like laid it in there. But yeah, I match it up perfectly, and then I use the eraser tool and the brush to get it to look like a natural, like it was like a one shot.
And why do you do it that way as opposed to just taking one shot?
I grew up, my grandmother used to do these, create these collages. She would take images, just anything, and really she didn't take pictures or anything like that. So she would find images and then she would create these collages out of them. And I think that kind of somehow in my mind, I'm kind of doing the same kind of thing, but I'm doing it with photos and with modern technology.
Isn't it tedious to match the landscapes to create that one big picture? I mean, I would imagine it is, but I've seen other people do that. It just when I see people talking about that, I think to myself, I'm like, wow, you have to just match all the little details.
You do. You have to like get it lined up perfectly, and if you don't shoot it, I mean, you can use Photoshop to correct some of like the little minor imperfections or whatever, the clone tool or whatever, but you have to like plan it when you shoot it. You can't just go randomly and shoot like a bunch of shots and think, oh, I'm going to go home and push them all together. You kind of have to do it with a plan. So.
And what other post-process edits have you done to the picture to get to the finished product?
Okay, so I'll do all this, like, so these first layers, all these layers right here were to create the image. And then up here, I will copy and merge them all together right here. And then right here is where I'll start manipulating. And I really I use NextFX. And so I usually NextFX Pro, but I have a couple of different presets in there that I like using. So I bring out the dark contrast. I like to use the darken the outer circle and the outer edges of the image and lighten the center. So I have these different ones that I go to all the time, and that's what's here. That's what you'll see here. So once I apply that, I run it through there, and once I apply it, you can see the difference. And then I will copy and merge these two files together so that I'm working on a merged file layers, because when you try to edit here, it will sometimes it just doesn't manipulate all of the data, and it oftentimes will just because it's kind of like a thin layer of processing, like a filter kind of, so it will sometimes it doesn't affect, like it doesn't make the change that you want. But once you've copied and merged it, it'll affect the file the way you want it to. And then up here, I just start to I use curves to make areas lighter and darker the way that so you can see kind of. So here, I didn't think, like when I got through with that it I didn't like the vignette, so I did it. I created a new one, and then yeah, I use curves a lot to make the adjustments. And that's pretty much it.
Great.
Often, sometimes I'll use hue saturation and tone, as well in color. But oftentimes I can get what I want just by manipulating. It's kind of like dodging and burning or whatever in the darkroom. So,
Crystal, who would you say are your influences?
well, definitely Brooke Shaden. She's one of my first. I discovered her right when I was taking that visualization class, and it happened to be towards the end of that class. So I ran across her work at that particular point, and when I saw her images, I thought, oh my gosh, those are what I picture in my mind. So I kind of did some exploring around as far as her processes and the way she shoots and the things like that, and so I would say that she probably is the biggest influence. And then there's Tom Chambers. Okay, so the other one would be Tom Chambers. So his work is amazing. And so those were my two very first, Tom Chambers and Brooke Shaden were my two very first actual artist influences, I would say, on my work. To this day, I love both of their images.
How about any books or music or movies that inspire you?
Okay, so like the funny thing is that a lot of my work, I think that I'm drawn to like archetypal women, obviously, and I think that derives from my childhood. When I was a kid, I loved Greek mythology, Egyptian folklore and stuff like that. So I used to I didn't really read books, but I would go through like pictures, and I would like turn the pictures and look at the pictures all the time. And then the other thing that I think has a big influence on my work is I was raised in a very strict Christian home. So I loved Gothic novels, but I was not allowed to read them or even bring them into the house. So I used to look at the covers because the covers were just these amazing images of women like flowing in the wind with their gowns and everything. And so I just remember I would sometimes go to bookstores and just look at the novels, knowing that I couldn't dare take one of those home because I would be in big trouble. So I would say that those two things probably have the biggest impact on what I'm making today.
Novels, Gothic novels. What's your favorite Gothic novel?
Isn't that funny? I don't read them. I just look at the picture.
Okay. That's great.
Isn't that crazy? I don't read them. I just look at the pictures.
Any movies that you find visually inspiring?
I like Sleepy Hollow, and I like The Skeleton Key. I like some of those ones that are kind of have that kind of feel. I like scary movies, but I don't like gory movies. So I like the ones that have this suspenseful kind of eeriness to them.
Do you feel like that's incorporated into your artwork?
You know what? It probably is, because I never really looked at my work as being dark, but I've had a lot of people say that my work is dark or that it has a macabre kind of aspect to it. And I think some of my women definitely, have this deeper, darker side that is, but in general, I think women have that anyways, that there's this mysticism to women behind what they present to the world. So.
And what piece of advice do you wish somebody gave you when you first started?
I think it is really important to get around artists who are doing the work that you want to do. So if you can find an artist who is already who maybe produces images like you visualize or like that you aspire to, if you can learn their processes, I believe in if somebody's the best place to go for knowledge is to somebody who's already done something. And So that's kind of my philosophy for everything in life. So if I can find somebody that has already done what I want to do, I want to go to that source to learn it, because you know, that firsthand knowledge is incredible, and you can't, you know, replace that. So that's probably the best thing. And there's tons of things to do. You don't have to go, like I go to school, I go to college to be a photographer, to be an artist. You don't need to do that, so you don't need to spend all that money to do that. But you definitely want to do things that are hands-on. So if you can get to a workshop or something like that and learn from somebody who's already gotten to the next level, that would be super important, I think.
Did you recently do a show in Los Angeles?
I did. Thanks. It was super exciting. It was my first local show, and so it was at the Los Angeles Center of Photography, and I had 6 images that were hung there. So it was super exciting. I've actually been fortunate enough to have images hung at other shows, but they've been, you know, like on the East Coast or in New Orleans, different places where I'm not readily able to get to because I have a family and I run a business from home. So, so this was super exciting because it was right here.
Could you talk about the process you used to get into that show?
Well, it's a selective group that that we actually all mentor with Elaine Smithson, who runs Lens Scratch, and she's the editor for Lens Scratch. And so we've been mentoring with her for about a year. So we she kind of selected the work that we bring in our work. She looked at the work, and then she kind of selected the work, and then that's kind of that. That's how that goes.
So what is that mentorship program that you were in for Lens Scratch?
It's actually called Next Step, but it's for artists who are ready to get out there and maybe get their work into galleries, or to start producing prints, to start maybe going to photo reviews, things like that. She actually kind of walks you through that kind of a process where a lot of times we produce art and we've made all this art, and now what do we do? Where do we take it? How do we move on to the next step with it? And she kind of guides you through that whole thing. She used to be the photo editor for Vogue, and she's been in the industry forever, and she's an incredible giving woman who loves artists that are like in the LA area. So she has this affinity to helping the emerging artist. So she's just a great resource. If anyone ever had the opportunity to take one of her classes, that would be probably the best advice I could give you, especially if you've already developed a style. And it doesn't matter what your style is. If you've already developed, an aesthetic and you're ready to move forward with that, she's like the source to go to for that.
Crystal, what are your future goals?
Obviously, everybody wants to have their images at some point, maybe in a gallery or something like that. So really, and I produce art for the sake of art, so I'm not out. I don't do, portraits. I don't do senior pictures. I don't really do weddings. I have been asked to do those kinds of things, and I might, but it's not that I'm saying that I don't do those things, but my artwork, I produce solely for the sake of art. So I don't do it for any other reason other than for art. And so I would love to have it in a gallery. So it's kind of my goal is to maybe have gallery representation at some point. And then I love producing like big photo shoots, say for like the artists who, anyone like the model or the makeup artist or the photographer who is really at a professional level, but maybe doesn't have the funds to put on a full-blown photo shoot, that, the funds that are required to do something like that. I like being able to orchestrate something like that. So I kind of do that. Usually once a month, I'll put together a photo shoot with a theme photo shoot that is stylized. So that's tons of fun for me. So I was in my corporate job. I was an event coordinator. So I think that is sneaking into my work somehow.
So, what do you usually shoot with? What kind of gear? Do you shoot Nikon, Canon, or you
I use
mentioned?
a Canon, and I am very, I bought my Canon, which is probably one of my big mistakes, but I actually really love my camera. I bought a 50D, and at the time that I bought it, I didn't buy it because it was cheaper or anything like that, because I think I paid top dollar for it because I, bought it retail. And but Mark IIs had just come out and 7Ds were out. So, but I was really frustrated with the new cameras because they have video on them, and I'm explicit, like so I, just I was like, I felt like they had corrupted my still camera by putting video on there. But knowing now, like I've worked with them, and I'm like, yeah, the low light is an awesome capacity in those cameras, so it really makes it worth it. But I've learned to use my camera in a manner that I don't ever go above 800 ISO, because if I do, it gets noisy. I have to always, I try to always shoot at 1 or 200 ISO. Even when it's dark, I'll try to figure some other way to get the light in there, because I use natural light a lot, almost always. And then, yeah, and then I use a prime lens. I love my 50 millimeter, which is my go-to favorite. I use it almost for all of my montages. I use for that. I have that. I have a couple other ones that I like. That like I use 20 underwater sometimes. It gets me up closer to the subject, and then without all that density, from the water. And then I like. I have a 70 to 200 that I love using, but I use it primarily for sports, for shooting my kids. I use that one for taking pictures of my kids. That's what I use
Great.
that for.
I know you plan these meetups, and sometimes I attend your meetups. I really like those. I think they're fun.
Oh,
I think it's a really good way to meet other photographers and just shoot different
yeah,
models.
different things. And like sometimes I love like the synergy of our particular group is super fun.
Yeah.
Everybody's super creative, and we really don't have, I'm not saying that we do bring in interns kind of like that would be at a beginning level or whatever, but everybody's at a professional level. Everybody's gone to school. Everybody's, the makeup artists, the hairstylists are already working professionals. So we don't really have anybody that's like brand new, just trying to develop their craft. Everybody kind of is already at that level. So the images that come out of there, I'm super excited about, because you see all these artists who are just like producing this beautiful stuff. When we did that, we did this one, the Surreal Winter Wonderland, so many images from that particular from that particular photo shoot got published from all the artists that were there that day. So that was super exciting.
Yeah. Where were they published? Different magazines
Yeah,
or?
they were different magazines. There were some in Dark Beauty. There was Surreal Beauty magazine. Gosh, there was like 3 or 4 other magazines that had them in them as well. And yeah, at the time I was like shocked. I was kind of floored, because I was thinking, oh my gosh, who would have thought? I mean, it was a pretty big, elaborate idea, but it was, and it was a super fun day. There's actually a video, I think, from that day that Marcos produced, and it's kind of fun because it encapsulates that whole day, like all the different models, all the different photographers, all out there working together. So, and in fact, it has like even like the set designer. We had a set designer that particular day, so that was fun because it's a central location, and because we shoot these things during the middle of the day, we look for super like overgrown trees, like big shade trees and stuff, so we can get under there and not have direct sunlight.
And whatever location you use with your model, that's what you use for your art, right?
It is. I don't, yeah, mostly. I've only done a couple of images where I brought in, okay, so I did an abandoned barn. Have you seen my abandoned barn series? I did an abandoned barn, and it is about places that little girls go to play, like in their secret places. And it was inside, so I shot it inside this abandoned barn. And in that particular one, I brought in, like, I shot grass and like the field and stuff, but all of that is from the ranch property. I just kind of merged it together. I've done.
Do you want to bring that up?
So these ones, all of these were taken at that ranch.
And were you the only one shooting these ones, or were you also with a meetup?
Yeah, no, these ones I did. These were actually a portfolio I presented for a class that I was taking. Yeah, so I did these ones
World.
all by myself. Yeah, they. This little girl here is a neighbor gal, and then these ones are actually the other four are actually my daughter.
And were they all shot different times, or were they
They
shot all at once?
okay, so excuse me. So the first two I shot the girl in her backyard, and then all the rest of them, like all the barn shots, were from the same day. I shot all the barn, and the ones of Seja were actually shot the same day too.
Do you want to enlarge those?
Sure. So this one, so like this portion of it was shot in her backyard, and then she's supposed to be dreaming about it snowing, and she's supposed to be playing because little girls often like they make these imaginary worlds when they're playing, you know, in wherever they happen to be playing. So this little girl is supposed to be playing in the barn, and she's supposed to be dreaming like it's snowing, and even though obviously it's not real, so it's all like an imaginary kind of thing. And then this one is in that barn, and she actually does play the flute. So this is just
How'd you
her.
get the wind in that picture?
We shot this portion of it in her backyard, and we live in a kind of a pass, which is like a valley. So it is often like in the afternoon, it's just kind of the breezy. So it had just actually worked to our benefit that it was breezy that day, so it was blowing in the wind. But typically, when we don't have wind, I'll just, you know, flip the skirt or whatever to get that effect.
In the previous shot, how'd you get the snow in that picture?
That is, I just used a snow overlay. I just overlaid the snow over the top.
Where did you get the snow overlay?
Well, I'm trying to think what I did to get that snow overlay. I think I went to stock, like to a stock site, and like a free stock site, and got it. And then yeah, so that's where I got that from, because I
Got it.
at that point I hadn't done, that was like my very first image that I ever made where I added snow in when it wasn't really there. So I wasn't really sure how to do that at that point. But I didn't want it to look like it was really snow covered. You know what I mean? It's supposed to be like her imagination, like the snow is just coming down. So so that kind of worked here, where like some of, like when we did the surreal beauty, the surreal winter wonderland, we really wanted it to look like there was snow on the ground, and maybe coming down, you know, like a flurry or whatever, like it was coming down. So I used some actions to get the snow like to look like it was actually in the scene when I shot it. But we also used like we bought a 50-pound bag of flour for that shoot, and just spread it all over the ground and all over the plants and everything, so they were covered in white powder. And so it was pretty easy to add in the snow and have it look realistic, because we already had prepped the ground with the powder. I mean, with the flour.
Okay.
And then these ones. So this water I took when I was on vacation in Florida. But
And you said that this is your daughter?
yeah, this is Seja, my daughter, and she actually, this was the majority of this was shot on location. So the barn and her, she was all there. And then I just kind of overlaid that water from another image that I had. And this one was on display at LACP at the show. And I had a lot of people when they were coming through the at the opening and talking to me about it. They couldn't visually see, they actually thought, they're like, oh my gosh, is the water running through there? And I'm like, no. I kind of had to like Photoshop the whole thing together. But because I painstakingly like make sure that the walls and the mattresses and things like that look like they're wet, like you know, use curves or whatever to darken them up so that they look like the water's seeping up the walls or whatever.
How did you get her reflection in the water?
So I just okay, so I copied it from the original item, from the original file, and then I inverted it and laid, like I did an overlay in the water, and it just kind of looked like that, like it kind of. So I didn't really, yeah, I just overlaid it on the water.
That's fantastic.
Thanks. This one. She's supposed to be talking to God on the telephone wire, you know, like kids do with the
Now, is that a different model in that
that's
picture?
Nisha too.
She has different hair, so you.
Yeah, she does. She is a little cute blondie with an A cut, but I sometimes like we use wigs. A lot of times, like even in my self portraiture, I use wigs, and then just to give like a different. Yeah, so that was that one. That is Seja. This one was inspired. This is the actual farmhouse at the abandoned ranch, and it so we were doing this theme of from the yellow wallpaper, you know, that book. So that was kind of where this one kind of came from, where she's like lost in her mind and she's trying to get out of the wall because she thinks she's trapped in the walls.
And you overlay the grass also in that picture, or is that?
I did, yeah. Actually, all of these ones, the grass is like not really growing in there. It's the field right outside the. It's a big property, probably 10 acres or something like that. And so as I was leaving, I just got out and shot the grass. You know, the grass field right there. And then this one, this train track is actually right. So this is the barn, but this is right in our same little valley. So I shot this the same day, and we just went down to the train track and shot it. It's just like probably like a mile down the road or something like that from where the abandoned ranch is at.
Before you create a series, do you come up with all the different sketches for the photos, or is it built?
I do.
You
yeah,
do.
No, I will like lay the whole thing out. I like so I knew like I wanted all these different images, so I will sketch them out. I'm a horrible drawer, so they're like stick figure drawings, but then I will go to like say eBay or thrift stores with this once I've got the idea of what I want and start I use so like most of like I buy like vintage like negligees and nightgowns, and like this was a nightgown set, but it's probably from like the 40s or the 60s or something like that. And then this little dress, that's probably from like the 70s. That actually was a gift, that dress from an Asian friend of mine. But this dress, the original owner wore it to her high school graduation in 1960. So yeah. So I go on eBay and I try to find vintage clothing, and that's what I like to use in my, yeah, all these images. All the clothing is probably all vintage.
How do you get the overlay of the different backgrounds not to conflict with each other?
Well, oh, okay. So I put it on. Okay, so I built this whole. So like on this particular one, because it's the biggest one, it's I built this whole thing together, and this had concrete right here. So then when I brought the grass in, I reduced the opacity to like probably 50% or something, and then just kind of start painting it in.
Okay, great.
Yeah, on a layer mask.
Where can people find you?
I'm on Facebook. It's Crystal Dickerson Hancock, and then also my website is www.crystal, CRYSTAL, Hancock, Dickerson Hancock. So I know it's super long. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay, super.
Okay, well, thank you again, and
Okay.
I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, please send an email to me at rye@makephotoart.com or visit our site at makephotoart.com.